Now, when we think about those kind of critical controls, there's also just 4 things that I just think everyone should avoid. Historically, we've always kind of turned around and said, have complex passwords, rotate them every 30 to 90 days, don't allow them to use the last 12. I mean, it's a horrific process, which is outdated by many years now, but it's taking a while to make its way through organizations. And I'm kind of hopeful that a lot of the startups look to more of the current advice as they're starting to build this app, and we're still seeing some of that historical advice making its way in. So, the recommendation from the NCSC at the moment is move from passwords to passphrases, use 3 random words. You can add some complexity requirements into that, such as capital and lowercase letters and special characters, and don't force password expiry. The reason being is that with password expiry, it tends to lead to poor behaviors, people writing it down, making notes, doing rotation of passwords, such as just, password 1, password 2. Shouldn't be allowed through your dictionary stuff, but they're the kind of behaviors we start to see. You can either do that or you can use password managers, which actually then allow for ongoing password rotation without user intervention. But again, always make sure that you've got MFA implemented for all of those remote access, and I would say admin access as well. Another area we see is premature certification. So this is where people go, actually, we need ISO. We want ISO. We want the benefit of ISO. Let's go get that. But then what they do is look at the actual cost of implementing that and may take the path of least resistance or the cheapest provider to get there. And there are some different accredited bodies in the UK that can provide you with ISO. We always recommend looking at UCAS. And what ends up happening is they get the certification for the certification's sake rather than the certificate being the outcome of secure practices. And ultimately what that leads them to is having a badge of honour, but weaknesses in their security model. And then when they inevitably have a problem, you have some very difficult conversations with some of your customers. What we tend to suggest is actually from the outset, have a look at your certification journey, build a certification roadmap should you have a requirement to have those certificates. Look at the markets you're going into, look at the frameworks you might be bidding through, work out what certificates they need, and build that out in line with your maturity. Cyber Essentials is a great place to start, even if you're just looking at aligning yourself with it. That's a bottom-up standard, it's a technical standard, whereas ISO and SOC 2 are top-down standards. So they're looking at actually your risk management. SOC 2 goes much more into control effectiveness and looks at that over a period of time rather than a point in time like ISO. But build that roadmap out and think about what you want and start aligning early on. Because again, something like ISO 27001 is something that needs to be implemented across the business in working practices. And that's really hard to do once people have established their processes. If you do it early on and start to introduce it, then getting the certificate will be an outcome and an easy outcome later down the line. Security tool sprawl tends to be something we see in older organizations, so could be scale-ups or moving into larger businesses. And that's generally where they've gone, and going back to what I mentioned earlier, we've had an event, so we need this tool. We've had another event, so we need that tool. Or actually, and I've seen this within portcos, within private equity firms, the PE firm has recommended this tool, so we're going to have it. Or as I experienced in industry, someone had a conversation with a supplier on a golf course, and now the answer to my problem is this product, right? And then I end up with quite a few of those products because everyone loves going on golf days. And what you end up with is multiple screens, multiple policy enforcement points. You're needing multiple skills. And actually, when you start to look at tool consolidation in those situations, you're losing marginal capability and increasing efficiencies. So actually, you need to start looking at that early on. And it's all very well going, I want the best in breed. Actually, Andy, it was called something else the other day when we spoke around it.
Best of suite. Yeah, that's the new one that's making its way around LinkedIn.
It's all very well looking at that. But ultimately, you will often meet the majority of your requirements with some of those broader tools. And actually, you can be more effective and more efficient in managing them and deploying all of the capability. And the last point that I would bring up is box ticking. And it goes back to things like getting ISO 27001. Don't do something because you've got a requirement on a sheet that you need to tick to say, I do it. So don't run annual training because you need annual training for compliance reasons. because that's not giving you the outcome of a improved security culture. Go back and look at what you want to achieve with what you're doing with security, and look at how you get there through a journey, be that slowly introducing things. I can assure you, and because security culture is one of my focus points, that running annual training does not turn the dial on human risk management, does not turn the dial on human behavior. That is not what changes people. However, every due diligence questionnaire you will get from your customers will ask you, do you do annual security training? And you can tick that box and say, yes, I do. But it actually doesn't do anything other than enable you to tick that box. So go back to your objectives, go back to your outcomes, and look at everything you're doing in security and how it meets those. If you do that, you will drive good ROI on your security.